The following is a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio. Keep your mission on your mind and your mind on your mission. This is Mission Minded with Michael Coleman.
Welcome back to another Mission Minded. Keep your mind, your mission in your mind. He is Michael Coleman. He is the CEO of the Heart of Alabama Food Bank. I am Tony Curry, your host here on Tony Curry Radio. And I know you've been a very busy man. We're very transparent here. Normally would do the show earlier in the week, but you've been doing a little traveling, business, personal, everything good?
A little business.
Right.
One of the things I'm going to talk about on Bite by Bite. Went up to the Cleveland area food bank. They have a community model, something that we are collaborating with somebody, one of my board members, but he's also the one kind of over the community resource mission and in his own ministry. And so, we went up there together, kind of saw how they modeled it, asked them some questions, and flew home early this morning. And I've been in the office 10 minutes, and here we are on the thing talking about Mission Minded.
And you get to hang out with your buddy Tony. I mean, how good has this been? It's
So
Friday.
I
It's
can't
good.
think of
I
a
mean,
better way to end
what
the
a
weekend.
blessing. Hey, that's really interesting because I don't think people really think that when it comes down to something as basic, and I say basic, and I mean that with my tongue firmly placed in my cheek, as food insufficiencies, that there wouldn't be any really like, wow, what a great idea. Why aren't more people doing it this way type of things in the food bank industry? Or am I way off? Do you go to the places and go, wow, this is something that we could implement here in Birmingham or Montgomery?
Well, one of the things that's very interesting is my heart is in workforce development and actually lifting people out of poverty. Of course, it can start with food. But when I came here, I shared with the board, my vision was not just being the best at handing out food, although that's vital.
Mhm.
Because you think about it, there's a lot of people who we're not going to be able to help. And what I mean by that is they're retired, they're elderly, they have disabilities, they are all these kind of issues. Those are people that we're likely going to have to support. And it's important that we have that in place and understand that. However, for people who have the ability to work and they have other issues that they're dealing with that are preventing them from that, lots of times you see food banks get into wraparound services, not where they're doing it themselves, but providing the space for the community to each come in. So everything from mental health, it can be help with kids, it could be marketplace shopping, so you got the food connection. But what we've noticed is that people will gather for food. So the question is, when you get them there, do you want to just hand out food and send them on their way, or do you want to somehow be able to identify some of the challenges, provide some of those services in hopes that we are kind of what we call lessening the line?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So that's kind of what we're focused on right now.
It's funny. I do a support group every week, and I was a part of that group on Wednesday, and we had several people, and it was an open meeting, and several people had walked in, and it was the Shepherd of the Hills Lutheran Church, and in the corner is where they have their food pantry, and there are bags of food, and it says on the outside chicken, beef, whatever, blah 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 blah, and it's for obviously different areas of Birmingham and for different groups. And I guess they know to come in and pick those particular bags up. There's instructions and stuff. And there was a guy in the support group that asked me after the meeting, can I take one of those bags of food? And I said, hungry, are you? And he was kind of a thin little guy, but and he's like, yeah, guys, I haven't eaten in like 3 days. And I just really don't know where I'm going to get my next meal from. And that was the first time that it really, outside seeing someone, holding a sign on the side of a freeway or something like that, where someone was just, you could just look at his eyes. And I said, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a look inside that bag and see what you got. And then we'll run up the street to Publix and we'll we spent $20-25, but at least got him some ramen noodles, some things that he could have eaten. And it just, I don't know. I was thinking about you through that process. And it's the first time where it just really hit me, where I actually looked and I thought about you, because you see that look in those eyes all the time. I don't know. It's a different look. It's a look of desperation. And the fact that he was willing to be humble enough to acknowledge the fact that he hadn't eaten, and you, I mean, if I wasn't mistaken, I actually think I saw him drool. I mean, a little bit. He was so, you could tell he was so hungry, and the entire meeting, all he could do was look at that food, and we just take it for granted that we're just going to go to the pantry and grab ourselves some Cheerios or some SpaghettiOs and be good to go for the day. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that along with you, and I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
mean,
people realize that.
it's funny how we look at, we see people all the time, look them right in the face, and would never guess in a million years what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, if they're normal volunteers, they're embarrassed. They've never had to do that before. And so, part of what we try to do is make sure that we create an environment of dignity and lack of judgment. Because when that person does do that, we would hate to think, oh, I'm just too embarrassed to do it. When we're saying, no, we want you to talk about those things. We want you to come forward. I mean, think about it. He waited it took him 3 days of hunger before he would speak up.
Yeah, and I mean, there's
And,
just, I
you
mean,
know, we're like, we don't want
food,
people going 3 days hungry.
and it's just amazing
Yeah.
because there's food everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's food. I mean, there really is. I mean, and we don't
Yeah.
ever think about, certainly going to the bottom of someone's trash can or something, but there's just, and I can't imagine not having the wherewithal or the financial wherewithal to be able to purchase food and to know how much just this one bag at least could get him through a couple of days and stuff. And so I tried to set him up. Actually,
Sure.
I gave him your information at the Heart of Alabama Food Bank. Albeit it's a long ways away, but you cover 35 counties in the state. Hey, we got some great emails. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net, info at TonyCurryRadio.net. We certainly talk about food banks and food insufficiency, but we also do a lot of business news. And of course, Bite by Bite show we're going to be doing right after this one is another great show where we really specifically talk about food needs. You want to get into some emails? We got an interesting one here from Mike in Tuscaloosa. He said, I was listening to the show last week about politics. We had the question about who would it be better for you as a non-for-profit, Democrat, Republican? Does it really matter? And you had a great answer for it. And he said, I saw where Taylor Swift has thrown her hat in to support Kamala Harris. He wanted to know, does that make a big dent? Does it make a big difference when celebrities tie in with a political force like that? She's got 280 million followers, which is roughly, 60 or 70 million people that we have living in this country. I would think that a person of her stature would probably have a big push. It'd be like Oprah supporting you. But does that work? Should it work? And how often do we listen to our celebrities when we really don't have a clue?
Well, I think it's the people oftentimes, and this is not an indictment. You see it on both sides. When you talk to, more so younger people have not lived enough life. They may be able to talk some of the issues, but they've not lived through recessions. They've not really seen the effect of economic policies and going to war. They're just kind of starting to wrap their minds around a lot of that. And so you have somebody as popular as Taylor Swift is today, go out there and advocate, and somebody who really admires her, who may be looking for a little direction. So I definitely think it moves the needle a little bit primarily with that younger population. I will also tell you though that really we're talking 5 to 8% are undecided, and no matter what Trump does, he's going to have his. No matter what Kamala does, she's going to have hers. And then there's this small little bit. And the reality is the undecideds are not uninformed.
Mm-hmm.
It's that they're not beholden to either party, and they're really trying to evaluate and see what's in the best interest, at least in their minds, of going forward. I don't believe that people who are informed about what's going on, whether you vote left, whether you vote right, typically are influenced because somebody with stardom. I think lots of times, like, get out the vote. Well, that was that was an effort that was very clearly targeting young people. They used Hollywood, and lots of times it wasn't just, there was a subtle innuendo, if you will, which was, it's very critical that you vote. And when I say vote, I mean vote Democrat.
Yep.
That
Yep.
because all the people who were doing these commercials were kind of public with their feelings. I mean, it wasn't, there was no ambiguity as to how they were going to vote. So when they said your vote is critical, they were trying to drive out the youth vote.
What's amazing to me, Michael, too, is I want to throw this in. I don't know how it is in other countries, but we do put a ton of firepower behind our celebrities. I mean, we buy Us magazines and National Magazine. I mean, we love our celebrities more here than I think any other country. Maybe I'm wrong, but reality TV is huge here. And it is amazing the force that celebrity has. If you're a Trump supporter or a Kamala Harris supporter, or you're a Republican or Democrat, regardless of who's running, and you've always been that way, I don't think Taylor Swift saying anything is going to change your mind. But if you are one of those 5 to 8, which it appears could be the difference in this election coming up, and you're riding the fence and you're going to flip a coin anyway, and you're a Taylor Swift fan. But I don't see it the other way around.
Like I said, you're going to get picked. Now, here's the thing. You always see the polls between, I think it's always interesting to see registered voters versus likely voters. Likely voters are people who go to the polls almost no matter what.
Yeah.
And so lots of times you can take a poll with registered voters and you get a lot of young people, and that's where things could move in her direction. With registered voters, typically, if you are a committed voter or you already know you're going to vote, you try to get a little informed. Lots of times we grow up in households, and so our views, positively or negatively, are shaped by what we hear from our parents and grandparents. And I think it's also true, the old adage, I think it was Churchill who said something, this is not going to be an exact quote, so forgive me, if you're under 30 and you're not a liberal, you have no heart. If you're over 30 and not a conservative, you have no brain. Yeah. And so it's these people who again, don't have enough life experiences. Not they don't have the intelligence. They just don't have enough life to be able to understand how certain policies, and that's when you see things like socialism begin to creep back in, because they think, well, yeah, it's not fair. They've got this rich guy over here. You got this homeless guy on the street. They should be getting the exact same amount.
Yeah.
And that feels good. And they don't understand that typically socialism, or at least historically, wherever it's been tried, it's not that you're elevating the poor. You're going to bring everybody down to a bad status. But anyway, I just said all that to say and answer our question. I think with registered voters, maybe so. If you were to go interview them after young people, I'm definitely voting for Kamala because they think that's cool. They think that's hip. They think, Taylor did it, so I'm going to do it. Are they actually going to go out and vote? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe a few.
They may not be old enough to vote.
Yeah, but those who are moved typically go to the polls, for the most part, take the time. I'm talking about the ones that aren't ready committed. They're going to take the time. They're weighing the policies and the platforms of each candidate, and then they're going to ultimately make a decision. And some people, don't make a decision until they walk into the polling booth.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's going to have a great thing. Matter of fact, I think this will be old news in a couple of days, and it'll be some other thing that replaces that.
There you go. info@TonyCurryRadio.net, info@TonyCurryRadio.net. We'll take your email questions here. This is a wonderful show called Mission Mind. It's been going on for a couple of years now. You go back and listen to all of our previous episodes, and we put a brief description under each one, so you're not going in blind. You can see what's going on. Molly in Newark, New Jersey, says, I've been the vice president of a very successful company since I was 21. I am currently 38 years of age. And I enjoy the VP position, and I'm very good at it. But on occasion, 4 times to be exact, of the last 10 years, our president position has been open, and I'm always pushed to go try that president position, but I never try out for it because, quite frankly, she says, I don't want the job. It's too much hassle. You got to stick your neck out too far. And that should say something that we've been through 4 presidents in the last 10 years. But now she feels like there's a pressure of going, hey, this is a natural progression for the VP to become the president, Kamala Harris, of this particular company. Is she doing herself? She wants to know, am I doing myself a disservice? It does include more hours, but also includes a lot more money. Or should I stay put in a job that I like at my age? She's also very, very young. But should she take that leap, despite the fact that she sees me very, very happy in the position she's in because of her age? It's a tough spot.
Oh yeah. So if Molly, and I've dealt with people battling this same kind of thing before. First of all, for somebody to be a VP since 21 years old, Molly is obviously above average and I'm sure quite impressive. I think I think she's asking such a great question because there probably is pressure or expectation, and most people want to climb the ladder for power, prestige. But I think she's really really wise in taking in and thinking through, counting the cost of when you step into a president's position. So this is kind of what I've offered people. I prefer when I've gone into organizations to be the CEO, although I can easily work for others. And technically, the CEO still in nonprofit world is still working for somebody. You're working for your board.
Yeah.
But Molly doesn't strike me just by her words as somebody who's pursuing more money. And I will tell you, if you are in a position that you are fulfilled, I would not let outside pressures or expectations drive you into a position to where you're going to be giving up that happiness. I was just talking, matter of fact, the gentleman I was CEO of his company, and we were traveling together, and we were talking about that when you step forward and say, I want to be the person to lead an organization, there's a lot of risk out there because you've got a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks of people who don't want that, but want to sit back and lob bombs at you and criticize everything you do. So you're taking on the risk when you step forward to be the face of a company or a movement. And the truth of the matter is there's a lot of people aren't cut out for that. I mean, you think about, oh, look at the prestige, look at more money, I'll be set. But when you start realizing now you're taking on every responsibility for every person in that company, you're taking on the responsibility to make sure that company, depending on if it's a for-profit company, if its stock is sold, you not only have to turn a profit, but you have to meet Wall Street expectations of how much profit you're going to do. It is an incredible amount of pressure that can be affected by a host of variables of which you have no control over. And the truth of the matter is, if things go sideways, not necessarily because you're a bad leader, Molly, but things can happen. You could have a downturn in the economy, and then they start looking for somebody else, and then you're fired because the company's not meeting expectations, and you long for those days of coming to work and just enjoying the job that you have. So here's what I would say. If you secretly in your heart, and only you know this, feel like you could bring something to that company, that you could benefit, that you could grow the company, that you could benefit the employees, and that you want that challenge of leading, but maybe are a little tentative, a little afraid to step out, I want to encourage you to step out and do that. Overcome that. Don't let your fear, if there's fear, I'm not saying there is, but if there is, I encourage you to overcome that and strive for that position. However, if you are happy where you are and you feel like the only reason is there's a societal expectation or a company expectation that you will step in that, do not take that. You stand firm where you are. There is absolutely nothing wrong with standing up and saying, look, I'm a content person. I don't strive to be in charge. and I use Joanne, she's my second in charge here. Joanne says to me all the time, I'm a great number two.
Yeah.
She says, I don't want to be a number one. I'm a great number two.
I think of the coaching world a lot like that. You know, the guy, Mike Shula, always comes to mind. He wasn't a great head coach, despite the fact that he started 10-0 for Alabama, but he's a great coordinator. There's a lot of Mike Martz, a great coordinator. These guys that are just great coordinators. They really love that part of the job. They don't want the head coaching. They don't want to be part of that stuff. They don't want to be in front of the media. I say the only thing here, and she's been doing this for what, 18, 19 years. I would only say this. It sounds like she's being pushed, not because they think she'd be good at it, but because it's a natural progression of her job. I don't know. She didn't say exactly what she does. And so that's the only part where I think it's a little sticky, but you also have to take in mind that what if she ends up taking that job and it's not everything she thought it was going to be. And next thing you know,
it's hard to go back.
You can't go back. You can't go back. You can't go to the president and say, it's not working out. I want to go back to the VP, a job I did very, very well. So yeah, it's a sticky spot.
I wouldn't step out into that unless you were sure that that's what you wanted, because you're going to have headaches of which you cannot possibly anticipate. Even if you were to sit there for 60 days and let them onboard you with the old CEO still there, when you bring in your leadership style and your perspective and your vision for the company, there's going to be things that go wrong. And if you're not ready for that, or you're not ready to face that, then stay content, stay happy where you are, and thrive where you are. And who knows? In 5 years, your mind may change. And you're like, you know what? I am ready, or I've outgrown this job, and I'm looking for my next. But I wouldn't rush it. You're still so young at 38.
I know, 38, 39.
You and I are 58. And we're sitting here going, that's 20 years ago. I was just retiring out of the military, but good gracious, that's young.
Yeah, it really is. So hang in there. We'll do more emails next week. info@TonyCurryRadio.net. We do have one I want you to fester over, think about a little bit.
Okay.
And it's something you brought up before, and something that I don't think people think about at all. And it's a great email about cultural poverty. And that is when you've been raised in poverty, you know poverty, you are comfortable in poverty. You've always known poverty, even when you've come into some type of money. It seems like you can't get out of that. So think about that. We may be able to get an entire show out of that. I don't think, and for the most part, I think in some cases people don't want to get ahead. They're comfortable in the position. It's almost like being in an abusive relationship. You know what to expect. You know what it's going to be like every day, and you've grown comfortable with that. And so even when you get a chance to take yourself out and move on, you're afraid to make that move. So think about that, something like that. Heart of Alabama Food Bank. Our next show coming up right after this here on Tony Curry Radio is BBB Bite by Bite. We're going to do that next right here on Tony Curry Radio. Thank you, my friend.
Enjoyed it, my brother.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.